Hello, welcome. Welcome. This is the global community for adults who are healing CPTSD. My name is Athena, and I will be facilitating our time together tonight. For some reason, my little soothing background music isn't working. Let me just see if I can fix it. There we go. Let me know if you can hear that, and let me know if the volume is okay. Let me just pause and just sort of recalibrate here. It's always a fun challenge when we have technical issues whenever we're trying to go live on YouTube. So, as always, it is a joy to be here with you in this community. And if you're new here, welcome. We warmly welcome you. We're so glad that you're here with us. We have all been gathering here together about once a week since 2014, for over 11 years now. And if you are new, we warmly welcome you. We are so glad you found us. And I'm going to go ahead and just post a link in the chat box. Before I say hello to everyone, I want to really just say a very special thank you to Ninja Taco and John Harvey, who are our moderators here every week, and a really special thank you to just each of you who choose to show up for yourselves every week. It really is just such a special community, and I don't know anything quite like it, where everyone just gets to come here just as they are, to be warmly witnessed and fully acknowledged for their unique lived experience and accepted for who they are, and just to be validated wherever they find themselves on any given day, whatever they might be feeling. It really is just, it's very special. This YouTube channel is made possible by the Foundation for Post-Traumatic Healing and Complex Trauma Research, also known as CPTSD Foundation. And thank you to each of you who have joined our community away from social media over on our private platform on Circle. It really is wonderful to connect with you in between these Monday nights. The foundation offers 2 calls a day every day, 365 days a year. And sometimes on Sundays it's 1 call a day. It just depends on if I'm doing nervous system regulation in addition to weekly creative group. But we have a fiction book club, nonfiction book club. We have trauma sensitive yoga, daily encouraging texts, weekly creative group, daily recovery support calls twice a day, Monday through Friday. And it's been life-changing for me to be able to be a part of a community like this. So thank you. Thank you to each of you. If you're interested in joining us away from social media, there is a link in the description section or in the chat box. And without further delay, I just want to go and say hello to everyone who's here. Hello, Jeffrey Sherman. Hello, Brave Vanessa. Hello, Greg. Hello, Ninja Taco. So good to see you, Recovery Buddy. Hello, Adria. I know I'm saying it wrong. You already gave me the phonetic pronunciation of it before, and here I am mispronouncing it again. Hello, Jen. Hello, Lisa Marie. Hello, Mandy J and Lil J. So good to see you. Really great to see you. Hello, Candida. Hello, John Harvey. I was just talking about you behind your back. I was just saying how grateful I am for you and Ninja Taco being here every single week. Hello to you, Kitty. Hello, Karen. Hello, Nadine. Hello, Mary. Oh my gosh, so good to have you here live. I know sometimes you can't make it and you watch the replay. So really good to have you here. Oh, Jen says, having a hard time managing what my emotions are today and what aren't really my emotions. It's hard to explain, but I'll try and stay present today. I left early the other time. You know what? There's no pressure. You do you. Or as the cool kids say, you do you, boo. Like, there's no pressure. We are so glad you're here, surrounded by those who care about you. And if you gotta step away, you gotta step away. Glad you're here. Really, really grateful. Jeffrey says, Athena, someone reminded me last week. Poppy used to post a list of resources at the beginning of every live stream. If you wanted, I could post them. If you comment them, I can copy everything. Oh my gosh, thank you. You know what? That's a really great idea. Let me find it. I have it here somewhere. 1 second. It's a lot for me to post every single week in addition to all the other things that I do. So I'm glad that you're reminding. Oops. Resources. So here is the URL. Jeffrey, I'm going to try to tag you if I can. Ooh, it let me. Cool. There's a link, and then let me see if I can actually get everything. Oh yeah, see, they're all in their own little boxes. If you would like to, here, you know what I'll do? This is the text that needs to go with the link, Jeffrey. Thank you so much. I'm gonna have to break it into pieces, actually. It won't let me post the whole thing because it's big. So 1 second. This is the text that needs to go with the URL. It's still too long. Let me see. So it'll be 3 different messages. Here's the first one. Here's the second one. And here is the third one. Let me see. Oh, this one's too long. Let me see if I can. For your area. There we go. And then this is the third one. Boom. I hope that worked. Hello, Kate. So good to see you, Fremily. Oh my gosh. Did John Harvey just post that he wrote a book? Wait a second here. I missed this. What? So it's called Leaves Dance? Like the leaves on the tree, they dance? John Harvey published a book, a poetry book. John Harvey, put a link to the Amazon link for your poetry book so that we can all get it. That way we can support your work. Leaves Dance. Wow. I want to read your poetry. I want to support your poetry. Do you all remember Ellen in our community? Ellen Tift? She's a university professor. She wrote a book. It's called There's a Word for That. And it's all about healing complex trauma. Wow. Congratulations, John Harvey. I am cheering you on. That's incredible. Warm welcome to anyone I haven't had a chance to say hello to and greet by name. Okay, so if someone would like to leave a comment after the video is done recording later on this evening, the content for this week, which is week 16 of Pete Walker's book, Holistically Treating Complex PTSD, the content begins at 10 minutes and 30 seconds from the beginning of the video. So content begins at 10:30. Boom. Hello, Joe. So glad you're here too. Welcome. John Harvey, our Blue Wrench crew, he wrote a poetry book called Leaves Dance. It's a poem about two trees romancing each other. Oh my goodness. This is just amazing. Thank you so much, Jeffrey Sherman. I really appreciate you offering. I know it'll be 3 separate posts every single week. But you know what? I really appreciate you so very much. Thank you, Karen. Page 347, Grieving as a Spiritual Practice. And just checking in one last time, how is the volume? How is the volume, particularly with the background music? And wonderful. Thank you, Vanessa. Thank you, Candida. Thank you, Jeffrey. Hello, Elisa. Welcome. I'm so sorry tonight's been tough for you. We're getting ready to start. So we are at the top of page 347 in a section of this chapter subtitled Grieving as Spiritual Practice. And Pete begins with a quote from Jack Kornfield. This is perhaps the most difficult of the balancing acts we come to learn. To trust the pain as well as the light, to allow the grief to penetrate as it will, while keeping open to the perfection of the universe. Jack Kornfield. Numerous people have extraordinary numinous experiences through a spiritual practice based on meditation. Others, including myself also, intermittently experience numinous openings through grieving. Grieving can open a profoundly moving connection with the sublime. As such, it is a combined and evolved faculty of both emotional and spiritual intelligence. Grieving naturally promotes the rebirth of aspects of ourselves lost in childhood. One of the greatest of these rebirths is the rebirth of a wondrous spiritual sense of belonging to something grander, lovelier, unifying, and more meaningful. Many of my own and of my clients' transformative numinous experiences are grief-inspired. Typically, they occur along with fully surrendering to deeply crying and angering about some terrible flashback or present time loss or injustice. Once the pain of feeling deeply and inexorably abandoned releases, the griever's consciousness expands into a numinous feeling of joyousness and gratefulness for being alive. At its most transformative, this experience is a balanced numinous ambivalence of crying and laughing simultaneously or vacillating delightedly between them. This highly transformative experience often culminates as a release from pain and a joyous relief of once again feeling worthy and feeling like life is good. Numinous experiences can make life's painful contradictions feel like blessings with silver linings. When I am graced, and this is Pete Walker speaking, when I am graced to have them, they deliver me into feeling more accepting of, and not infrequently grateful for, the dramas of life and death and joy and pain, gain and loss, love and loneliness, understanding and confusion. Transformative grieving experiences have revived me from the most devastating losses of my life. Typically, they sooner or later restore me to a certainty that being human is still the most magnificent of gifts, even though it is also ongoingly and unpredictably peppered with periods of pain and suffering. On many occasions, grieving has brought me the kind of transcendent deliverance described in Rabindranath Tagore. And there's a quote here. Described in, here, one second. On many occasions, grieving has brought me the kind of transcendent deliverance described by Rabindranath Tagore. Quote, I thought that my voyage had come to its end, to the last limits of my power, that the path before me was closed, that provisions were exhausted, and the time come to take shelter in silent obscurity. But I find thy will knows no end in me, and when old words die out of the tongue, new melodies break forth from the heart. And where the old tracks are lost, new country is revealed in its wonder. End quote. Along with love and peace and beauty, the Maker made loneliness and angst and suffering. Our ability to fully and truly appreciate life depends on our willingness to requisitely feel sad and angry, requisitely feel sad and angry about our own and others' misfortunes and difficulties. The tools of grieving are graces and faculties of emotional intelligence that enable us to endure life's inevitable hardships and then return to gratitude for its wonders. On numerous occasions, I have felt as if grieving cleansed my heart and psyche and restored me to an appreciation of the miracles of creation. What breathtaking beauty and intricacy exists in the world of nature. What a wealth of color, flowers, species, ecosystems, landscapes, sunsets, coral reefs, and exquisite cloud formations there are to discover and enjoy. What a wonder it is to be in a body that can feel the warmth of the sun, the cool of the breeze, and the sweet tenderness of a friend's caring kindness. Grieving has also moved me to notice the spiritual beauty of many other human beings. How miraculous that many of us can at times be deeply caring. Many of us can at times be deeply caring and loving despite our own woundedness. What a wonder that we can cultivate gracious experiences of commiseration with safe enough others. Grieving has invariably healed me from the despair of feeling heartbroken by a friend's or lover's death, betrayal, or abandonment. Grieving inevitably restores me once again to the most precious gift of all, another authentic immersion into a full loving connection with life itself and all its manifestations. When we recover a grieving-enhanced spirituality, we gain the grace, strength, and guidance that we need to have a recurring, if not constant, love affair with life. A spirituality that is based in reality gradually decreases the despair of the abused and abandoned inner child and replaces it with a sense of hope and meaning. Ralph Metzner, psychotherapist and professor of consciousness studies, testified to this. Quote, "Out of the turmoil and darkness of dying comes the sparkling vitality of the newborn self. The new self is connected to the eternal source of all life, the source from which we all derive the divine essence within. It is therefore aptly named the eternal child." End quote. A final caveat for therapists. If guiding spiritual development feels too foreign to you after reading all of the above, please give yourself permission to refrain from such intervention and concentrate on the other 5 dimensions of arrested developments. As stated earlier, I have found that when work is successful on all of those levels, survivors' optimism about life is usually already awakened and evolving. Chapter 11. The Journey of Recovering. I am going to pause right here and I'm going to check in with each of you and just ask you. I know that last portion of chapter 10 was very reminiscent of the Tao of fully feeling, harvesting grief. And I just want to check in with you and ask you how you're feeling. How did that land for you? How are you all doing? Yes. Nadine says, "Oh, John Harvey, I love your book theme. Trees are very special to me." John Harvey, I nearly started crying when I read your description of your book about 2 trees romancing each other. When I was really going through a very delicate and fragile season of my own healing journey, I would sit on the patio of one of my best friend's houses, and she has these hammock swings, and I would just look at the trees and listen to the trees, and it's one of the most healing times of my life. I have a love affair with trees, and they are just, really, really, really special. So, I missed something here. Kitty says, "Once in a while I think about what it would be like to publish my own poetry books in the distant future, but I don't really write. like how I used to. Mm. I want to encourage each and every one of you. I was terrified to put my writing out there, and then I came here on Monday nights, and then I was reading to you some of the meditations and nervous system regulation scripts that I had written, and you all were so, so, so kind. Yeah. Mary says, that is so beautiful to hear right now. Grief is right up front for me at the moment in a good way. Just holding this gentle space for anyone who's grieving. John Harvey says, some poems are about trauma, love, horror, and other types of some poems are about trauma, love, horror, and other types of poems in my book. Thank you for sharing your work with us, John Harvey. I love poetry. Yeah, Nadine says, Elisa, I'm sorry you're having a tough night. I'm sending you support and love. Candida says, I write poems and song lyrics, but haven't published anything yet. Kate says, Jeffrey, I'm 50% joy this week. I got to take my grandson to Disney. Thanks for asking. That's amazing. I'm so happy for you, Kate. That sounds wonderful. Brave Vanessa says, life is not good, in my opinion. I'm so sorry, Brave Vanessa. Whatever you're feeling is valid. Super valid. And I'm certain, knowing what I know about Pete Walker, that he's not simply putting forth the idea that we minimize or invalidate our lived experience. This is his fourth book, and he's he's a prolific writer and has been published in multiple journals, and his work has helped, hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people. And he's shared his own trauma journey of just decades of neglect and dysfunction and abuse. So I know that he's all about being real. And if where you're at is that life isn't good, then I just want you to know that we see you, we honor you, we hear you, we value your presence here, regardless if life is good or not. Kate says, I want to hear everyone's work. I stopped writing 15 years ago. It would be wonderful to hear your work as well, but no pressure. Mary says, I had to look up numinous, having a strong religious or spiritual quality, indicating or suggesting the presence of a divinity. Yes. Kate Jeffrey says, great, I made a list of PC parts to build my own powerhouse PC, and the parts finally came in Thursday. I've been building and tweaking both hardware and software ever since. I'm excited for you, Jeffrey. Jeffrey says, I'm excited about it. We're excited with you and for you. Kitty says, it's hard to feel like being human is a gift. Yeah, I get that. Absolutely, Kitty. I get that. Mine's been very up and down lately. Like on any given day, depending on what time it is, I would be somewhere between what Pete is saying and what you are saying. Most definitely. You and Vanessa, for sure. Jen says, I stopped writing poetry a while ago also, but then I wrote something a couple of weeks ago for the first time in so long. That's amazing. Congratulations. John Harvey says, I don't know how to do a link to Amazon for my book. It's on Amazon under Leaves Dance by John Harvey. There's another one on there with green words, which isn't the one with a physical copy to buy. You know what I want to do? I want to find it. I want to go on Amazon and I want to post a link. That's what I want to do. Here we go. Leaves Dance. By John A. Harvey. Here we go. Oops, wrong one. Here we go. Okay, everyone. This is the link to buy John Harvey's book. Oh, the link is too long. Dang it. Let me see if I can get a shorter link. Here we go. Let me see if I can. Let's see if this works. Nope. Darn it. I wonder why it won't let me. Well, that's a bummer. I tried, John Harvey. I noticed that you didn't mention that this was a memoir as well, but it is. It's poetry memoir. It says here, Leaves Dance by John A. Harvey is a hauntingly beautiful collection of poems that dance between the macabre and the tender side of poetry. Each piece tells a story both heartbreaking and heartwarming, exploring the raw edges of trauma, passion, and horrors that often lurk beneath the surface of everyday life. From eerie echoes of the supernatural beings to the soft whispers of romance, these poems pull no punches, revealing the truth that lies in a person's heart and under their bed. Perfect for those drawn to the darker side of poetry, Leaves Dance offers twisted tales and vulnerable moments stitched together by emotion, shadow, and soul. Congratulations again, John Harvey. It's very exciting. Wow. I wish it would let me do the link. What a bummer. I lost my place in the chat box. You're very welcome, John Harvey. Thank you for being vulnerable and putting yourself out there. Hello, warm welcome to you, yes. Much love to you as well. I didn't get a chance to say hello to you earlier. We're really glad that you're here. Yes says, after a spiritual awakening a while back, some events happened that weren't really processed so well from a neutral vantage point. Now it's as if everything is backed up, so it's hard to differentiate. Hard to differentiate emotions. It's like a big ball of stuck energy, like all frazzled, and hard to learn anything new or focus on actually expressing myself. Wow, that makes so much sense. Seriously. I've gone through seasons like that, yes. Yes says, I feel stuck in a loop when I try to output something. It's like I go back inside my head instead of settling into the heart, like an anxiety loop. It's like I need to be still but my mind wants to jump in 12 directions of past memories, my actual knowledge and feelings, etc. We see you. We get you. Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing. So, I want to check in with you all. Chapter 11, The Journey of Recovering. Let's see, it's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, it's going to be probably a minimum of a couple of hours. I really think that starting this next week makes the most sense because of the cycles and the subcycles that Pete talks about in recovery and the different stages of trauma recovery. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to end our time tonight with page 375, Karen and Kitty, and anyone else who's following along. It's a subsection called Signs of Recovering. And I'm going to read this all the way through to the top of page 380. So I'm going to read about 5 pages. And then next week, if whomever would like to make a note of this, please. Next week, we are going to begin on page 350. So it's about 25 pages of Pete laying it all out and describing the recovery journey. And to give you a reference, we do about 5 to 7 pages every single week. So that's about 3 weeks worth. So beginning next week, which will be the first week of October, for the month of October, we're going to be talking all about the different aspects of complex trauma recovery. But for tonight, let's talk about some signs that we are actually recovering from our complex trauma. Pete says on page 375, some survivors work long and hard on their recovery and mistakenly and shamefully believe they are not progressing. Because of the all or nothing thinking that typically plagues survivors, they often fail to notice or validate their own growth. Inner critic thought processes refute signs of progress whenever a new flashback occurs, no matter how much more diminished it is than before. Every recurrence of feeling shame, fear, or depression is interpreted as proof that nothing has changed, even when there are more substantial periods of not being triggered. The critic's all or none assessment amounts to either I'm totally cured or I'm still hopelessly defective. Once survivors identify with their critic's pronouncement of defectiveness, they spiral downward into a full-fledged flashback, captured once again in the CPTSD stranglehold of helplessness and hopelessness. When this occurs, it is a call to therapists to double up on critic shrinking work. Typically, this entails gently bringing survivors' attention to their habit of black and white thinking and encouraging them to notice and challenge it as much as possible. I'm going to pause right there and say that whenever my therapist does this, it bugs the hell out of me. I get really, 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 really frustrated. So if I'm ever emotionally constipated and I'm unable to access my anger, all she has to do is bring my attention gently to my habit of black and white thinking and encourage me to notice and challenge it. And I'm like, okay, F you, and just F all of this. This is so stupid. And I get really angry because for some reason, because I didn't have access to my anger until I was in my 40s, the idea of calling out this black or white thinking is like, it's calling out that younger part of me that was never, ever, 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 ever allowed to access her anger, and basically telling her, oh, well, let's just notice that. And it triggers me into a place of finally being able to access my anger. So it's good that my trauma therapist knows that, because she knows how to get me to be able to access the full range of my emotional landscape so that I don't end up stuck for, another 4 decades. Continuing, last paragraph on page 375. Pete says, therapists serve survivors greatly by aiding them to develop their arrested capacity for balanced thinking, for seeing the grays in important matters, especially in matters of assessing themselves and others. With enough progress in this dimension, therapists can then coach survivors to notice the degrees of their increasing developmental progress. If they do not, they may be complicit in their clients giving up on recovering. Top of page 376, Pete says, as I write this, I feel some old sadness about the decades that I judged my emotional tone and mood as either good or bad in a very all or nothing way. If I was not feeling very good, I then judged my experience as really bad. And since feeling very good is something most human beings experience relatively infrequently, my perception of feeling bad became a much more dominant experience than was necessary. Even worse, mildly unpleasant feelings typically morphed me quickly into feeling abysmal via the shame-tinged all-or-nothing thinking. It is common in early recovery for perfectionism to block survivors from registering real growth and development. But, as noted earlier, therapists can often remedy this by actively describing the gains that they see in their clients. Doing so often turns out to be a pivotal aid in resolving current flashbacks, as well as re-stimulating hopefulness and motivation. Here are some typical signs of progress that recovering survivors fail to notice and self-validate. Number 1, reduced intensity, duration, and frequency of launching into the 4F trauma responses. Number 2, increasing identification of inner critic attacks and emotional flashbacks, and growing awareness of how the former triggers the latter. It's like a feedback loop. Number 3, increasing resistance to and disidentification from the critic. Number 4, increasing self-compassion and self-protectiveness. Number 5, increasing amounts of time feeling good enough about themselves. Number 6, significant development of the 6 developmental arrests in their relational, behavioral, cognitive, emotional, somatic, and spiritual intelligences. Number 7, decreased use of self-medicating substances and processes. Number 8, increased experiences of good enough relating with others. Number 9, a decrease in frequency, intensity, and duration of flashbacks. And number 10, decreasing intensity of the abandonment melange feelings of fear, shame, and depression. And then Pete says at the top of page 377, a note about number 2 above, the increasing identification of inner critic attacks and emotional flashbacks and growing awareness of how the former triggers the latter, the feedback loop. Pete says, even when the flashback management steps do not reduce or resolve a critic attack or a full-scale flashback, noticing and identifying CPTSD symptoms is more therapeutic than being blindly lost in them. This is because improved recognition gradually facilitates more immediate ameliorative action. Improved awareness of flashback onset also makes survivors more likely to remember to invoke the protocol of the flashback management steps, which you can find at pete-walker.com, and on the left-hand side of the screen, look for flashback management. Pete says, a note about number 8. Number 8 reads, increased experiences of good enough relating with others. Pete says, with effective, holistic recovery work and a safe and supportive enough relationship with the therapist, social anxiety gradually progresses along a continuum that stretches from panicky withdrawal to less troubling social discomfort to periods of social ease. I really want to pause and acknowledge and validate every single thing that Pete has been talking about here, especially how he describes number 2 with the where he says even when the flashback management doesn't reduce or resolve the inner critic attack or the full-scale flashback, the fact that we're even noticing it and identifying the CPTSD symptoms is more therapeutic than being blindly lost in them. This in and of itself was a huge breakthrough for me. I was like, oh wait, I actually am aware of these symptoms. Like I know that I'm in a flashback. I'm not just waking up somehow like years from now going, why has life been such a dumpster fire for the last several years? Like, why is life so hard? I don't understand this. Like, what's going on, right? The fact that I'm even able to give it a name, like the fact that he's naming it as CPTSD symptoms is so empowering. So empowering, right? And then I really want to shine a light on what he said about number 8, which is the increased experiences of good enough relating, and how he describes it, that when we do this very slow, holistic trauma recovery work, and we have a safe enough environment and supportive enough relationships, particularly with a therapist, he talks about how our social anxiety gradually progresses along a continuum that stretches from panicky withdrawal to less troubling social discomfort to periods of social ease. And I really want to say thank you to Pete, first of all, for naming this, because it gives me a lot of hope that I'm actually doing something right. Because the way he lays these out, I can see myself in them. I go, oh, wow, okay, now I have language for what that was. That means I'm healing. That means I'm actually making progress here. Okay, so that's an actual sign that I'm doing something right. Okay, you know what I mean? It's very validating. And then in the middle of page 377, Pete says, a note about number 10. decreasing intensity of the abandonment melange feelings of fear, shame, and depression. Pete says, depression gradually lessens along a continuum that stretches from paralyzing despair to anhedonia, which is an inability to enjoy normal life pleasures. And then it continues to gradually lessen to increasing experiences of mellow peacefulness. And I can absolutely attest that that is 100% accurate. These 3 footnotes that Pete adds about identifying CPTSD symptoms and about how the social anxiety gradually progresses along that continuum so that we're a lot less panicky and withdrawn, and we move towards periods of social ease. And then how he talks about the depression feelings and how they just sort of fade into kind of like a meh, and then all of a sudden we go from depressive presentation of CPTSD to like and then one day we go, whoa, wait a second. I just experienced what I believe to be complete and total inner peace. It's like, wow, no way, right? So I really just, I want to just shine a light on that first section of page 377. And then we're going to finish up this section now, okay? Middle of page 377, Pete says, therapists aid survivors who lose sight of their progress by reminding them that their current doubt is usually a sign that they are in a flashback and that the negative noticing critic has taken over. They can then reassure them that their feelings of progress will return when their flashback ebbs. Once they demonstrate this by helping them work through the flashback, they can further remind them that flashbacks never totally cease. They are normal, temporary glitches in the 2 steps forward, 1 step back process of trauma recovery. Therapists can also highlight and elaborate on clients' gains when they are stuck in inner critic storms of negative self-noticing. Such an intervention is like throwing them a lifeline to pull them out of the mire of the abandonment melange. Here are supportive comments that have often helped my clients at times. Number 1, although it is hard for you to get it right now, it looks to me like your emotional flashbacks are occurring less often, less intensely, and less enduringly. Number 2, I also see your self-compassion and self-protectiveness becoming available to you more often. Number 3, and though it is naturally hard to see right now, you are becoming increasingly successful in shrinking your virulent inner critic. Such therapeutic reassurance often mollifies the flashback, helps to disempower perfectionistic and drasticizing processes, and inspires survivors' budding egos to join in on banishing the critic. Therapists also serve survivors well by noticing and informing them about their gains in reducing sympathetic nervous system arousal and in increasing access to parasympathetic relaxation. Signs of this progress are seen in body tension reduction, more ability to rest and relax, improved sleep, and physical health, and an evolving interest in taking better care of themselves. As survivors' recovering matures, so too does their increasing ability to resist overreacting from a triggered 4F position. A healthy balance in the appropriate use of their fight, flight, freeze, and fawn instincts progressively develops. This can be seen and fed back to the survivors in the following ways. Number one, they increasingly limit their fight response to healthy assertiveness and self-protection. Number two, they moderate their flight response into relaxed efficiency in meeting their responsibilities. They also progress in their ability to discern and leave situations that are not in their best interest. Number three, they increasingly limit their freeze response to times when it is appropriate to relax and rest or quietly assess what is their next priority. Number four, they employ their fawn response with less self-abandonment and self-sacrificing. They progressively develop their ability to recognize and leave relationships that are not reciprocal, but draining or demeaning to them. And number five, further evidence of decreased overreactive 4F responses is seen in survivors who become increasingly balanced between the polar opposites of their fight and fawn response. As this is realized, survivors vacillate healthily between asserting their own needs and compromising with the needs of others. Number six, similarly, decreased reactivity is seen in a more balanced movement between the polar opposites of flight and freeze. This manifests as an improving equilibrium between doing and being, between left and right brain activation, and improved balance of the sympathetic nervous system hyperarousal and the parasympathetic nervous system relaxation. The vital importance of balancing the fight, fawn, and flight, freeze polarities within oneself is explored in greater detail at the end of chapter 6. We did talk about that, but we could definitely go back and review that if you'd like. Continuing in the middle of page 379, even deeper recovery occurs as survivors gradually become more relaxed with safe enough others. This, in turn, leads to an increasing capacity to be more authentic and vulnerable in relating. Ultimately, this culminates in a survivor acquiring at least one intimate, mutually supportive relationship, where each person can be there for the other through thick and thin. Advanced trauma recovery also correlates with letting go of the salvation fantasy of never having another flashback. Giving up this salvation fantasy of never having another flashback is another 2 steps forward, 1 step back process. Survivors typically have to wrestle with denial a great deal to increasingly accept the unfair reality that they will never be totally flashback free. Once survivors accrue sufficient practice in flashback management, they remember more readily that they inevitably come out of being triggered. They also see that their flashbacks are indeed occurring less often, less intensely, and less enduringly. Once this experiential knowledge becomes ingrained in them, they can usually recognize and respond to flashbacks from a position of self-compassion, self-soothing, and self-protectiveness. I want to pause right there and just attest to this. Is actually like, it's wild when this happens in real time. And I literally have stopped and acknowledged, wow, I am noticing what's going on in my body right now, and this feels familiar. This feels like panic. This feels like a flashback. And I'm able to sort of wrap my arms around myself and be kind and gentle with myself and say soothing things to myself and just let all of those younger parts of me know that I'm not going anywhere and that I'm here for them and that we're going to be okay. Right? So I really love that he's mentioning this, because he says once this experiential knowledge becomes ingrained, we can usually recognize and respond to the flashbacks from a position of self-compassion, self-soothing, and self-protectiveness. And that's absolutely accurate. If someone would have told me that's what it was going to look like, I would have been like, yeah, right. That's definitely not going to happen. But I'm living proof that it's actually happening, right? So, bottom of page 379, and we're just about done with this section. We're going to wrap up tonight. Pete says, finally, it is an awful reality that not all survivors can work a recovery program successfully. This is true no matter how capable and caring the therapist is. Those afflicted with severe personality disorders or a history of multiple psychotic breaks are often in this category. This can also be true of those who are pre-psychotic and at risk of decompensating during the remembering and grieving phases of recovering. Nevertheless, I have delightedly seen exceptions to this in survivors who have had a single or even a few breakdowns under extraordinarily stressful situations. These individuals achieve significant recovery by removing the major stressors from their lives and embracing the 6D process successfully. Typically, going no contact with the malignant narcissists in their lives was key for this result. So, vulnerable share, I want to just really hone in on what Pete is saying here at the top of page 380. So, I fall into this category. I had a traumatic break with reality, also could have been called a psychotic break. It happened more than once, a couple times, and as Pete describes it, under extraordinarily stressful situations. That definitely is something that I qualify for. It was when my son was deployed, and that type of fear that goes into a single mom's heart. I was a single mom for almost 17 years. I have one boy, one child, and he was deploying. And while he was deployed, I was having auditory hallucinations and visual hallucinations. And as Pete describes here, calling that extraordinarily stressful circumstances, he then says, these individuals achieved significant recovery by removing the major stressors from their lives. Check. I did. I removed all major stressors but one. I embraced the 6D process successfully, which I made note of before I knew that it was called that. I made a list in my notes app of how my CPTSD was showing up relationally, how it was showing up in my behaviors, so behaviorally, how my CPTSD was showing up in my mind and in like my thoughts cognitively. I made a note of how my CPTSD was showing up in my emotions and the way that I supported myself. I also made a note of how my CPTSD symptoms were showing up in my body somatically. And then I also made a note of how my CPTSD symptoms were affecting my relationship with a higher power, so in my spirituality. So this is Pete Walker's 6-dimensional approach, or what he calls 6D. And I didn't know that it was a thing. I just have this note in my notes app that's called CPTSD mapping, like I was mapping it out, right? Like I have a map, And I labeled things, like I labeled it like a pre-trigger, a trigger, um, flashbacks, post-flashback. Like I have all these different labels and things. And I mapped which people, places, and things tended to cause me to respond either relationally, behaviorally, cognitively, emotionally, somatically, or spiritually in certain ways. And once I figured out which people, places, and things were the perfect petri dish for my triggers to manifest and then to be flung into a flashback, I then got granular on it and I studied the environments, the people, places, and things of how the flashback was manifesting itself. How long did it last? What did it feel like? Was it more like classic PTSD where I could flash back to something specific? Or was it more complex PTSD where I was flashing back to like nothing specific, but I just felt in my body? It was like a body memory, right? So, what he is saying here about how he says, I have delightedly seen exceptions to this, right? In the survivors who had a few breakdowns under extraordinarily stressful situations, these individuals achieved significant recovery by removing the major stressors from their lives, embracing a 6D process successfully, and typically going no contact with the malignant narcissists in their lives was key. And I can attest to this. When I went no contact with most of my family and anyone else that was disrupting my peace, all of a sudden, my moments of social anxiety were diminished. My body memories were diminished. My 4F responses were diminished. I was no longer toggling back and forth between fighting and fawning or freezing and fleeing. It was just wild how, like, I didn't realize that the people, places, and things could be studied and mapped. And when I mapped it, I created a recipe for how to not have body memories and how to not be flung into a fight response or a fawn response where I'm self-abandoning, or going from like being completely stuck and unable to function to zooming around my apartment trying to get everything done, right? So I don't know, like it's very encouraging to read Pete's words about this because I feel like, oh wow, like the reason that he is sharing this with us is because this is what he did. And knowing that he did this because it's what happened organically for him, and that indeed is what happened organically for me, but there's no way in a million years I could have articulated it the way that he did or created an entire 6-dimensional approach to, all of this, like from a clinical perspective. It's very encouraging. And so for anyone here who's in a really tender place, and just maybe struggling, I want you to know that like the struggle bus is real, and it's an absolute impossibility for us to stay on the struggle bus forever if we are showing up for ourselves in just even the smallest of ways on a daily basis, right? So I want to thank you all for your presence. I want to encourage you wherever you find yourself. And I'm very grateful. So next week, we find where the beginning of chapter 11 is. It is, where did it go? page 350. So next week we are going to be on page 350. That's where we're going to begin. And I'm really excited. Really, really, really excited. So thank you all for your presence. A very special thank you to John Harvey and Ninja Taco, and for all of you who are here just on such a regular basis. It really is such a gift to be here, healing right beside you. I love that we have this space. And for those who I will get to see, like over in our community, we have such an amazing team of incredible humans that post inspiring resources. Nadine is there, Candida is there, I believe Vanessa is there. We have such an incredible team of people, and we're doing everything we can to make it a space where everyone can, um, just come as they are and find ways to experience belonging and connectedness, because we are worthy of belonging and safety and connectedness. So, thank you. Thank you for being here. I look forward to seeing you very soon, whether it's over in our community or here next week on Monday, next Monday and every Monday, 7 p.m. Eastern. I love you all so much. Thank you for being in my life, and thank you for allowing me to be in yours. And please be extra kind and patient and gentle with yourselves, because you're worth it, as Jeffrey would say. And I will see you soon. Good night, everyone.